You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
This is Jesse. In the future, when you shower at the public pool before you get in, it will double as a sunscreen application.
This is Randy. In the future, well, I just can't wait for the Roaring 20s to come back. See? God, what was that?
Oh, yes.
Okay, it's happening. Well, I got through most of it, and I was like, wait, how do I put it?
Listen, this show has a long and storied tradition of terrible impressions.
This is true. This is true. Oh, man. Wow, welcome to the Grawlix podcast, see?
What is this episode?
Episode number 49.
All right. 49. 49ers. And we're like a gold rush up in here.
It almost felt like you went Morgan Freeman from Shawshank Redemption. 49. I can't do it.
That was the year that I can remember.
49, the year I met Andy Dufresne. Speaking of terrible impressions. Oh. Hello, old listeners, because we certainly lost any new ones that tuned in. All right. We're going to talk about, hey guys, we're doing our poll list this episode.
What's that?
Well, our poll list, I'm glad you asked, Jesse. So, we have a poll up on the website at grawlixpodcast.com. You can vote on existing comic book suggestions, or you can add your own suggestion. And, every month we go and we look at the one with the most votes. This is strange. And then we read it and we talk about it a month later.
Yeah.
It's the poll list. And guess what?
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Nah, it's a great way for you to influence the show and for us to read new things that we might not have read already, or revisit things we've read, in this case.
Right.
For you, not for me.
Yeah. This was all new old stuff?
Yeah, this was all new old stuff for me. Kind of. It's very familiar, all new old stuff. That's part of what surprised me about it.
Yeah, because it's been, recycled and renewed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the episode we're on, the poll list episode. So that's what we're going to do.
I mean, do we have other?
Not really.
I mean, like, what's happening in July? Is there anything that we're totally blanking on?
Oh, yeah, probably.
I mean, at this point, Doctor Who will be over until December, but we'll be like hot off the heels of things like Spider-Man. Spider-Man will have happened.
Oh, yeah, that's true. How about that Spider-Man?
How about them Spider-Mans?
Oh, yeah.
Whose idea was that, right?
War of the Planet of the Apes. So that's another.
Yeah, that'll have happened. Yeah.
So me and Melanie can talk for 4 years about how we haven't seen that yet, and then we'll watch it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So War of the Planet of the Apes just happened, and guess what? Me and Melanie finally got around to watching
the last one.
Watching the last one after many years of repeating ourselves on the podcast. We haven't seen that yet, and I don't know why.
Well, what did you think of it? I mean, was it worth the wait?
I think there was a little bit of like hype happen where, I don't know. I did like it. I liked it. It didn't have James Franco. Of course it didn't. But
well, on the home cam, like on the.
I know, and it was one of those things where it's like, oh, James Franco.
We're like, oh, he just reminded me how this movie doesn't have James.
No, I think a lot of people would argue that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but no, I did enjoy it. I liked it. I'll say this: like on one hand, like it was kind of predictable, but I don't know. It felt like a real movie as opposed to this is going to sound weird, but like, there's a lot of modern movies, even ones that I'd like say are good, but big blockbusters where it's like, it's just kind of a ride. And even though this movie, you know, it had action and stuff, even though it was kind of predictable in certain aspects, it felt like a movie. It felt like an old school movie, if that makes any sense.
And that's why Gary Oldman was there. Because it was a movie.
That's one thing that surprised me is like, because he was used so much in the trailers, I thought he was like a main character or something. And not that he doesn't have a major role in the plot, but like, he's hardly in it. He's not in it that much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was really surprised by that.
Actually, the whole City of Men is not in it as much as I would expect. You know, like they really kind of focused on the world, the ape side of things.
Yeah.
Which I think you kind of do in order to, you know, make them more of the protagonist, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting flip because, I mean, you have villains, obviously, in this. You have kind of the expected villains, like, you know, you see it coming, but also, like, on the human side, you kind of end up with somewhat villainous characters that you don't necessarily see coming. Yeah, it really does focus more on the apes and the ape society, and I thought that was interesting. And also, I was very confused because at first we did not have the subtitles turned on, and I was like, are we supposed to know what these apes are sign languaging? And yep, you're supposed to. We figured it out before too long, and we were like, oh, why aren't these on? These should be on. So
you would think that would be a default.
Yeah, exactly. I was a little confused at first, but we figured it out. It makes a lot more sense because at first I was like, oh, that's kind of bold. Like they're gonna have this whole thing with the apes and just not tell us what they're saying. Wait, are they actually? The sign language is what like really like was like tipped me off. I was like, wait a second, we should probably know what this is saying. But
yeah, because it wasn't that how they kind of communicated in the first one.
Yeah.
Because Caesar can speak, but at first those other ones can't.
I thought that was also interesting how like random apes would occasionally start just kind of saying a word. It feels like the kind of movie that would end up on TV on the weekends for like years. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's something that I may not like look forward to watching.
You mean like the original Planet of the Apes?
Exactly. And maybe that's what I mean by it. Like it feels like a movie because like it's not something I'm going to rush out to revisit, but if it's something that if I come across it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll watch this again. So
yeah. Well, and that's interesting because I think the first one is easier to rewatch. The one with James Franco and John Lithgow and you know, like the whole origin story kind of set up. That one is a little easier to watch, whereas this one is I would say more classic Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
because you're in that post-apocalyptic world now. Like civilization is kind of shut down.
And I was surprised. Like, I mean, obviously, there's been I don't know that they specify what time, like how much time has passed, but obviously, a good chunk of time has passed. I was surprised to find like very much like you're in the apocalypse now.
Yeah, because they didn't leave it that way. I mean, like they left it like, okay, this might start. And you kind of got the impression that, okay, maybe we're going to see things falling apart in the next movie. No, things have fallen apart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I liked not showing us, you know, I liked how they handled that through conversation and stuff like that. Just mentioning just how people went crazy, did horrible stuff to other people and all this. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was very...
You get this idea that it was like the Purge.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels a little bit like, you know, it's like Walking Dead without the zombies. It's just like, you know, they moved into this area and they're trying to reclaim it. But you got the jerk characters on the human side and the ape side.
Yeah.
And... you know, it works, but man, they were like both of them. As soon as they showed up, you're like, oh, that guy's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Koba. Oh, had it up to here with that guy. Man.
Yep.
Not only is he going to shoot a man in the face, he's going to make him look stupid first.
Yeah. And when the movies first opened, I was a little worried because the CG, and maybe it's a matter of like, then I got used to the CG. At first I was a little surprised at the the CG didn't look great. I was like, oh, really? Like, I kind of figured they would have really went all out. And maybe I then just kind of like got used to it, or the CG got better. But most of the movie, it looks great. And
I wonder if maybe the terrain had a lot to do with it. Like in the first movie, it's so obvious because you're right up against like slick urban backgrounds and whatnot. But in this one, like the tone of the movie, you think about the lighting, the color work and the lighting of the movie. The second movie is way more subdued palettes. And I think that hides CGI a lot better. Like you think about like Lord of the Rings and that kind of thing. You can hide some questionable CGI in a bleak, in a bleak setting a lot better than in a well-lit industrial, like laboratory type setting.
Yeah, man, that Koba. He's actually like a pretty good bad guy.
Just, you cannot like him.
No.
I mean, like you can't, but at the same time, you see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, that's why he's such a good bad guy, is because it's like, yeah, these humans are jerks, but you're just kind of a jerk too. Koba. You sound like the jock equivalent of an ape. He's an alpha. I don't know where I'm going with that. He's an alpha beta. He's an alpha beta ape. Yeah, I'm gonna go really obscure 80s reference. Revenge of the Nerds. That's the mashup I want to see. Revenge of the Nerds meets Planet of the Apes. Powers that be, make that so.
Yeah.
do 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 do. Haven't you heard?
Wow.
Yeah, content.
Content.
Yeah.
Melanie loves when we sing content. She just loves it. Speaking of, she's not here this episode. She's busy taking care of business.
Now I feel like I should jump into that song now. Taking care of business. Content. I feel like this hole just gets deeper and deeper.
Oh yeah. She should be back next episode. Depends if she feels like it. But speaking of animals that speak.
Yes. What could we possibly be talking about on this episode today?
Did we set up picking next month's poll list pick and then talk about Planet of the Apes or whatever?
We didn't announce next month. No, we just kind of talked about what the poll list is and just dived right into Planet of the Apes.
Okay, well, let's do that, I guess.
Okay, so we talked about how you can add things to the poll list. We talked about what the poll list is, but what is next month's poll list pick? Well, I'll tell you. It's Pride of Baghdad by Brian K. Vaughan.
Blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it.
I own it and I enjoyed it, but it's not one that you go back to a whole lot, and I don't know why, because it's a quick read.
This is one that I'm totally unfamiliar with. I know nothing of this book other than what you said.
Well, I mean, I suppose we should give people a little bit of a premise so that they decide to come back for it. But I believe it's based on actual events a little bit.
Okay.
It takes place in Iraq, obviously, hence Pride of Baghdad. And it basically, after one of the bombings or the incursions, basically one of the zoos is hit. And so the animals escape. And so it follows the lions that escape from the zoo in this kind of war-torn area and seeing how they react to the horrors of war.
Speaking of animals,
hopefully I'm not totally missing the mark on that because it's been a while since I read it, but that's kind of what I remember from the last time I read it. So speaking of animals and a much lighter approach.
So come back next month for that episode. I'm sure it'll be full of jokes.
Yeah. I mean, what's not to love about that? War-torn Baghdad.
That's all right. We need some of that to sober up once in a while.
Do we?
I mean, no. Well,
I mean, no.
Although, I haven't read it, so I don't know how heavy it is. But we read Mouse and a couple books like that. Well, there's not a lot of books like Mouse, but we read Mouse and some other more serious books. And it's always good to mix it up. Like, it can't always just be superheroes angrily punching each other in the face. It's good to branch out and read something that kind of even if it's not pleasant, that kind of whatever tilts something. Tilts the scales. It's different.
Okay, so I just pulled it off my shelf, and it's from the Vertigo imprint from DC Comics.
Oh, interesting.
And it is. It does take place during Operation Iraqi Freedom during the bombing.
Oh wow! So, okay, yeah, that'll be a fun conversation. No, I am still interested. I'm still very curious about it. So yeah, that's what we'll be talking about the second episode next month.
Yes,
this month,
but
this episode.
Yeah, this month. Yeah,
let's talk
about.
How
did we get
here? We're going to talk about different talking animals that are not in Iraq. So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, Cowabunga.
Okay, somebody had added to the list TMNT, so it was kind of in that situation. It's like we figure, all right, well then we get just kind of pick whatever we want to read. It's something interesting. And Jesse made the great suggestion of let's go back to the beginning.
Well, I mean, we had a lot of options because Ninja Turtles is over 30 years old or something like that now. And yeah, so I have a trade paperback of basically the first 3 issues and then some. So I don't know what you read. Did you basically just read the first 3 issues?
Yeah, I just did the first 3. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And mine is colorized. Was yours black and white, or did you get a colorized version?
No, our black and white.
Black and white. Okay.
So I didn't get colorized. Question on the colorized. All their masks, were they red?
They're all red. Yep.
Okay. Well, I knew the early Turtles, they all had red masks. I didn't know if maybe they revamped it to include the multicolored mask.
Kind of thing. Yeah, no, I don't know when the colors came in. If that was strictly from the cartoon or if that was established earlier. That's something that we should look into maybe at some point.
Because we've read some Ninja Turtle. I think we've talked a little bit about some of the IDW Ninja Turtles.
Because I'm current on that, and I've read the entire run of that, and it's a lot of fun. And so I know I've brought it up on here when we've done what are you reading? Recent read kind of conversations.
But I had never read, and I'm at the right age for the original animated series. So that was my Ninja Turtles and the live action movies, the first 2. That was my Ninja Turtles for a long time, but I had never read these early comics, the original Eastman and Laird comics. So this is a first for me, and I wasn't really sure what to expect.
I'm interested. For the month of July, we read The Button. So we've read something super modern, super current on our last episode. And then we read this, and I noticed that The Button, I had no problem reading 4 issues of really fast. And I know that part of that is that DC Comics breaks things up because there's ads and it's just a quicker read. But this was kind of a independent thing, so there wasn't going to be as many ads, and so it's going to be a little different pacing too. 30-year-old comic here, or 30-plus-year-old comic, and they have a decidedly different flair in the beginning.
Oh yeah,
and basically the only thing anybody ever tells you is they're much darker, they're much grittier, and that's all anybody ever tells you. But it's not unfair, but it's you just kind of have to read it.
Yeah, and first off, each issue, I think, basically breaks down to almost 40 pages, 30, upper 30s, almost 40 pages. So you got a little bit longer issues. I was able to, mainly because I had to, before the episode, or before we recorded today, but I was able to bust through them all fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I found, before actually getting into what they are, I found the first issue a little tougher. Not that it was a bad read or tough to get through, but I don't know, it took a little bit longer, and maybe it's because they were doing a lot of backstory stuff. And then I found I was able to go through issues 2 and 3 much faster. It's exactly like you said. Everybody tells you it's much darker and all this, and it kind of starts off that way. Like the tonally, it's definitely darker, a bit more serious. At least these first 3 issues. What I was surprised about, though, coming at this after knowing the popular mainstream kid-friendly Ninja Turtles, what I was surprised at is how accurate a lot of that stuff actually is to the source material. Like, tonally it's different, but the origin is pretty spot on, pretty close, at least how it's portrayed in what I remember from the animated series and also the first live action movie.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Also surprised to get Shredder, like number one, like main villain, first issue. And then the Mousers. I was like, the Mousers? Like, really? I was surprised that like the Hallmark Ninja Turtle villains were there right at the beginning. And with the exception of April's job, yeah, like it was all there. And I was actually kind of surprised at how close that later stuff was to the original comics. I expected it to be quite a bit more different. And other than the tone and kind of a little bit of the violence, like it wasn't that far off.
Right. So when you grew up, like Splinter, was he a rat or was he Hamato Yoshi?
I want to say he was a rat, and I can't remember. Maybe they handled it differently in the cartoons, but one thing I always thought was super goofy in the first live action movie was he was a rat and he was in his cage practicing the moves after watching his master, Hamato Yoshi. But that's how it is in the comic in the first issue. I was like, wait.
Yeah.
That's really what it was. I always figured they kind of like goofied it up for the live action. It's like, no, the live action is being like kind of super accurate to the source material in that case.
Yeah. They basically made a whole movie out of that first issue.
Yeah, it really is like, yeah, totally. I mean, they throw Casey Jones in there, a couple extra little things, but like even down to, so the first issue is their origin / the whole Shredder thing, but even down to the rooftop showdown and Shredder goes off the roof. I was like, wow, that's the movie. So
yeah. And you assume that he's dead in that first issue.
There was no attempted murder by Casey Jones, which was always very odd in the movie, but
right.
That one had much more of the like somewhat over the top monologuing, like you'd mentioned the Batman / the Tick monologues where it's like,
yeah.
We come from the darkness.
Was it I think, yeah. And Raphael in particular, like, my name's Raphael. I do what my other brothers can't.
Yeah, which isn't out of character for Raph at all.
No. But it's just like, it's kind of crazy because I don't know. I mean, I kind of give him that Batman / Wolverine vibe, but not so blatantly, you know?
Yeah.
Like this just seemed like blatantly Batman meets Raphael. And then like this is where you really, like, a lot of people don't know that there's that whole Daredevil connection. Like that just seems like an urban legend thing, but like when you read through the original first issue, you see it. I mean, there's a kid that literally jumps in to save a blind guy and then gets hit in the eyes with the radioactive ooze. But what people didn't see is that radioactive ooze then hits the turtles.
Yep.
And then they fall into the sewers and Splinter just happens to be there to save them.
Here's my question. Who walks around with a glass, like, goldfish jar with 4 turtles in it and stands above a open manhole? Wait, what?
Right, yeah. Like, I guess you just bought those turtles? Man, like, that kid should be really freaking out.
I mean, I guess that's better than the turtles belonging to April O'Neil somehow when she was a kid and her not connecting it till most way through the movie, but whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely get a sense of Raph, who Raphael is, and he's spot on. You get kind of hints at some of the other characters. You don't necessarily get the like super over the top Michelangelo, but you get hints at like, you know, which one's kind of the techie? Was it Donatello?
Yeah.
And
you really don't get that until the second and third issues either.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like that first issue, they're really just ninjas.
They did say radical though. When they started saying words, one of them was like Star Trek, and somebody said radical, and I was like, it's there.
Yeah. You kind of, I mean, like that's a thing that I didn't really get from later incarnations of the Turtles, but is pretty clear here is just how much parody is actually woven into this. Like Eastman and Laird, I think they were just having fun because they had like, what was it, Stupid Wars was one of the comic books in the second issue that's just laying around.
Oh,
and it's in the Star Wars font or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it wasn't even Star Wars. It was Secret Wars. It was more, they were poking fun at Secret Wars because it had Iron Man on the cover. But then they also have like Cerebrus right there. And then they have, you can look at their bookcase and see all these different books that they have on their bookshelf. And I don't know who it is. Maybe it's Leo is reading. Yeah, Leo is reading Dune. Who knew he was a sci-fi guy?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like Eastman's attention to detail. You look at the art and you kind of think, okay, well, it's rougher. It's rougher than we're used to, but it's also super detailed. Like it's hyper detailed, and there's a lot of hatching. And his perspective is really intense, and he does some pretty cool things with action.
That third issue has some almost mind-blowing pages with just detail. Where the issue, I think it was the third one, it's basically a chase scene through most of it. Some of that stuff was incredible. I mean, I guess we can get to it when we get to the third issue. But yeah, the art's interesting because it's weird to see the turtles look. I mean, they look like the Ninja Turtles, but like sometimes their necks are long, and that's a little strange to me. But also, like, the cartoon was obviously like, let's friendly up their face because they do look intense. They have intense faces all the time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. These are not cuddly turtles. These are not like, hey, I want a plushie of that. Yeah. I'm going to sleep with him.
But yeah, it looked good. And I think the art and the storytelling just in general, for me, got better from issue to issue. By the end of issue 3, I was like, whoa, man. Where's issue 4? Also, and I know it was this way, and if you have a character with swords or knives, like, yeah, they would use it to stab people. But it's also very shocking to see them like put a sword through Shredder, stuff like that.
Yeah. Does Leo gotta impale a fool?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, whoa. Was it the first issue where the two are wrestling in the sparring and
no? That's basically the first 2 pages of it's like a splash page. That's how the second issue opens
2. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's the first issue. They don't feel out of place, but it definitely feels like slightly rougher in some respects. And then by issue 2, like it feels like they're just going, like they know like what they're doing. Not to say that they didn't in the first issue, but
well, it's like the first issue is kind of like its own little self-contained one-off, one-shot story, and then they must have hit some success with it. Like they maybe didn't even think they were going to go any further with it. I don't know.
I want to say I read they to get the first issue printed, they borrowed money from one of their uncles or something like that. So like, yeah, it was very much like kind of a chance, like, hey, we want to do this thing and let's borrow some money and get them printed and this and that. And then it was very popular. So yeah.
And then, it's so popular now that in May of 2012, the original drawing of the Turtles sold for $71,000.
$71,000. Oh man. I guess a little bit the villain felt this way and Shredder felt this way in the first issue, but so then issue 2, we get Baxter and the Mousers.
Mm-hmm.
Baxter cracked me up because he's kind of a ridiculous villain. Because at one point, because he tells April, who in this case was his like assistant and some type of computer programmer, tells her his plan after he's worked out this deal with the city to like, he's made these mousers to go through and get rid of the rodent problem in the sewers. Whatever, this is New York. He tells her the plan and she's like, why would you do that? You can make, if you want to get rich, you could make that kind of money doing it legally, selling these things to the city. And he's like, but I want to have fun or something like that. Like this whole evil plan for like destroying a bunch of buildings and ransoming the city was just because that sounded more fun. He just wanted to be a bad guy. That's it.
Right. Well, and I was surprised. I mean, I guess partly because, issue 1 was supposed to be just kind of a one-off, but it's like, it's crazy to see that basically the Turtles had a harder time dealing with Baxter Stockman, who isn't even a mutant at this point.
No.
than the Shredder. Like they just went in, did their business with Shredder and boom, done. But like Baxter Stockman, that dude's crafty.
That's another thing, touching back on the first issue. I was going to say like, and maybe it's because I know, the Shredder is like a major Turtles villain. I was surprised it was kind of anticlimactic because they set up the whole origin and all this, and they send the message with the sigh through the window, and then they meet on the roof, and like, they get beat up a bit by some of the foot, but they kind of defeated him fairly easily.
Yeah.
But of course there were 4 of them, so.
They did cut him up pretty good. I mean, like they were looking rough at the end of that one issue, but yeah.
It's obviously vague enough to where all they found was like a scrap of metal off of his suit. So like, I'm sure he'll pop up again someday. But back to Baxter, it got me thinking about the fact that I don't think any of the movies have used the Mousers, and I'm really surprised by that.
Yeah, no. I mean, Baxter showed up in the most recent live action movie, and it's kind of similar, like he's kind of a big deal, but in subsequent things, like Baxter has always been kind of like a flunky for Shredder, or just somebody that's been forced into servitude kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
And in this, he's just totally on his own. He's just totally gonna use these things to rob banks and fund his own little army of things that will do nothing good.
So he begins enacting his evil plan. He tries to do away with April, kind of, I guess. Well, he sent some mousers after her, so I guess he assumed they would take care of it. But I was like, just throwing her in the sewers with plenty of places to go doesn't seem like a good way to do away with somebody, but whatever.
I mean, was he like ever hoping she would just go along with the plan? Or I'm trying to figure out what his thought process was. Like, it seems like he kind of thought she was just going to be okay with it at first, but then he's like, well, all right, you're not okay with it. I'm going to have to kill you.
Yeah, because he so casually just told her the plan. Like, oh yeah, no, this is what we're doing. But he also didn't really seem upset when she didn't like appreciate this plan. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, come now, April. Why would the Mousers dig holes into bank vaults? You helped program them, remember? It's like he tries, like, it's like it's so obvious. Like, she just figures it out, like, without even a good amount of evidence. Just like, hey, our Mousers could create tunnels like that. And then he's like, oh, come now, April. Ha ha ha, whatever. And then he's like, all right, I have something to show you. It's an army.
Yeah, it's a little cheesy in that respect, because it really does play out just like that.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how it plays out. But, it's fun.
But they kind of have their little showdown with the Mousers, and they kind of win. But then they get back to their hideout, and Splinter's not there anymore. So like that's the end of the second issue, is this whole reveal that Splinter's missing, and the Mousers were kind of developed so that you could take control of the rodent problem. Mm-hmm. Then that last issue we get a little bit even, like we get a little bit more character development as time goes on. But that's where you kind of really get that feeling of, yeah, Raph has always been kind of the outsider that will do what the other brothers won't do. But in this one, we get more of that hot-headed, I'm going to just go off and try to find Master Splinter on my own, regardless of what Leonardo wants the plan to be.
This third issue, man, I love this third issue. Like, the other issues were okay. I was surprised that the second, coming after the first issue, that the second one was just like, nope, this is just ongoing story now. Like, I was expecting another one-shot type issue. But yeah, it leads right into the third issue. And a lot of it's this car chase, this crazy car chase.
Yeah. In what would eventually become a turtle van. I guess it's just April's van.
Yeah, April's VW, old school VW bus van little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another thing. I was like, man, it's totally the turtle van already too. The reason for the police for the chase is pretty flimsy. Some other people in an identical van apparently robbed a bank or something. And so when they're driving by, because their house is wrecked up, they can't find Splinter. They call April seems like, she gave them her numbers like, well, call me anytime. And then it seemed like an hour later they call her. It's like, hey, can we live with you?
Yeah. We need a Splinter.
So the cops are trying to pull them over in the van. Obviously, they're like, well, we can't do that. We're giant turtles. And so they go on this insane police chase through a park. And there were several things where I'm like, wow, they caused that accident. They caused that cop car to crash into that car. They almost ran over many people. But then eventually they even comment on it and like, well, most of them, it doesn't look like anybody was seriously injured. And they're like, yeah, but this is dangerous. We need to, so they kind of did the good guy thing of like, this is irresponsible. What are we doing?
Yeah. They made a cop car crash through the storefront of a paint store.
And that's the one of the pages where like you can tell he just went
overboard with some crazy detail on that.
Every shard of glass, just a million shards of glass, just super detailed. Like it looks great. And superimposed over top of like onomatopoeia of the crash. And, like, whoa. Yeah. That's far more detailed than you'd probably see in typical comics today. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, there was another shot, and I can't remember if it was during the chase, before or after, where it's a city shot. I think it was just after. There's a couple where like he really draws the city, and maybe it's, like I said, I read the black and white version, and maybe it's just like the lack of color or whatever, but like it just looks filthy. Like the city looks filthy, and there's so much detail. And I'm thinking it might be like right after they capture the actual bank robbers. April basically pulls up in front of her place or whatever. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there's like vagrant. There's like a guy on a motorcycle, and then there's like the drugstore, and then there's like a bar, and then there's like Live Girls, XXX. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks crazy. The style almost reminds me of some of the 70s indie comic art or something.
Kind of curious how that looks in black and white, because it's a little too bright for my tastes.
Oh, really?
In the colorized version, it still looks really good. And it's like watercolor style, which would be the best way
interesting
to colorize this stuff. But there's a lot of yellows in it, so I wonder how black and white probably helps to make it look the way it does. I have to look at the details a little bit more to see like, there's garbage all over the ground. There's garbage can tipped to its side.
Yeah. It just looks like a filthy city, but it's super detailed. Yeah. I was really appreciating the art come this issue. Then after that, what is it? They crash at April's place. And then I think we go to Splinter, right? Who's like kind of coming to, and we get a little flashback to
that's where mine ends. Is right there where she basically offers them a beer, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll totally take a beer." And then they fall asleep, and that's the end of that issue.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well that kind of makes sense, because from that point on, you kind of get a setup for the next issue, which blew my mind because it's Splinter, all beat up. You get a flashback to his fight with the Mousers. You know, he beat him up, but like he got some wounds and he was losing blood. And then he's found by people who speak, their word balloons are square and the word, the font is very kind of computerized. So I was like, what's up with these guys? And they take him, they gather him because they're like, oh, fascinating. Look at him. He's, you know, disproportionately large. And then he says like, they're going to shoot him or something. They're just going to blow him away. And then he's like, don't kill me. And he's like, oh, he talked, blah, blah, blah. So they scoop him up and they take him to this, lab hospital type thing where he wakes up and initially thinks he's been caught, you know, whatever. They finally found me. They finally caught me, whatever, people. So he goes to escape. And as he's about to, bolt past a doorway and get out of the building, he turns to look through the doorway and it's I can't remember the names, but it's basically 3 dudes are sitting at a table. Their chests are like open and the brain looking, what is their name? The aliens that look like brains that ride around in like,
oh, the Utroms?
Yeah.
The Krang?
Yeah. There were 3 of them sitting at this table and he's like, oh, and that's the end of the issue. Yeah.
Oh, dang.
So I was like, oh, what? I want to read that now.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that they might cut that off in the collected edition or in that collected edition you have, because that kind of sets up for another issue that probably isn't there.
Right. Yeah, no, in this one, I get 2 more little one-off stories that Eastman penned. And one of them was interesting because it's basically just a throwdown with some local thugs. But there's this whole interchange where they're like, we did the right thing, right? I mean, not killing them and all. And they were like, yeah. So it's like still kind of in that whole, you know, how extreme these Ninja Turtles are.
In one of these issues, they fought, it seemed like just some random like thugs or something. And it wasn't explicit like they killed them, but it kind of seemed like they probably murdered some of these guys.
Yeah. That might have been like early on in that first issue.
Yeah, maybe that. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it's like
at the very beginning. Yeah. Before they're ever after Splinter, or before they ever go on Splinter's final mission, which is to take down the Shredder.
The second issue where they're talking about, well, you know, they give April their backstory and she's like, well, what are you guys going to do now? And they're like, I was like, it hadn't really occurred to me. I was like, oh, the Turtles are superheroes, aren't they? They're totally like, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't really thought of them as superheroes. I was just like, well, they're just Ninja Turtles. They do Ninja Turtle things. They're good guys. But, I mean, yeah, they just kind of hang around till there's like a villain scenario. And then they're like, oh, we got to stop this guy.
Yeah, they're waiting for the bat signal. And then they'll answer it. Or will they?
In this case, the bat signal is Splinter gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
Or will they? Yeah.
or will they? That's a callback to last episode.
Yep. But yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. I definitely didn't expect it to be so close to what the inferior child-friendly version that I was familiar with. I didn't expect that stuff to be so close to the original source material. Obviously, the tone was different, but yeah, it looked good too. I did enjoy the art.
So I was looking up when the colored masks came in, and apparently it all happened when they basically went into merchandising, and because obviously this original comic was not really intended for super young children. So it's when they struck up their deal with Playmates. Playmates was going to make, toys of the Ninja Turtles. And then they kicked off the idea of the television show, the cartoon. And so they had to basically change the image so that it could pass television censors. And so that's when they introduced things like them being joking all the time and being obsessed with pizza.
Sure.
And then that's where the different colored masks came in, and where they came in with easily marketable catchphrases like turtle power and cowabunga and all that. And apparently that didn't go over super well with the original creators. And even to this day, Kevin Eastman is still pretty heavily tied to the franchise, but Laird has kind of distanced himself from the whole thing. And even in 2012, basically said, if he had his way, personally his way, they would still be very different. That first animated series wouldn't have become what it was.
Sure.
He said, among other things, they would likely have been no moronic henchmen like Bebop and Rocksteady, which is interesting because, unfortunately, I really like Bebop and Rocksteady, even though they are morons.
I can definitely see where he's coming from, but Bebop and Rocksteady are all right. I guess it just depends. You ride them.
Right. Exactly. Well, and to be fair, they're pretty two-dimensional character,
but
even in the new movie where they're three-dimensional.
But you know what? If you write a villain like Baxter the way he is in issue 2, the typically moronic henchmen are not far behind. That's not
right.
a stretch.
No.
Baxter has no reason or no motivation other than he wants to be a bad guy. It sounds fun to be a terrorist.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We didn't even touch on that.
Yeah. He threatens to.
He's literally a terrorist.
He hacks the TV system or something, but he sends out this ominous message of I've got these. I'm gonna start taking down buildings if you don't pay me this much, whatever, blah blah blah. And he threatens to bring down one of the World Trade Center buildings. And I was like, whoa, it's so weird to read that in post 9/11 world. But then the news even refers to him as a terrorist after that. And it's well, yeah, that's totally what he is at that point. Except I think terrorists usually have a more political, goal. And he doesn't have any goal.
No.
He wanted the money, but he even said, he's it doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter. I just it sounds fun to destroy this stuff.
So that would have been 1985 when they completed issue 2. So that's when they would have been making, they were so ahead of their time in terms of what terrorism would become.
Yeah.
It's just crazy that they called it, I'm sure without ever thinking it would ever happen. But it makes me wonder, as a creator, what impact, what does that make you think when it's oh, I was just coming up with storylines and then 9/11 happens.
And then eventually you see that stuff happen. Yeah.
When art, life imitates art, what?
Yeah, it's gotta be weird. It's gotta be kind of a head trip. And, I guess I get it, because they were very standout features in the New York skyline, right. But it's still, wow, it's so weird to read that.
Well, they're so standout that, they were a major part of that whole King Kong movie from, what was it, the late 70s or early 80s? They were the big iconic thing. So, I can see, it's kind of like threatening to take down the Empire State Building. It's just it's a remarkable landmark kind of thing. And it's tied to economics. So that makes it even more appetizing for a villain to go after.
I'm glad we got back to that. But I guess terrorist ambitions aside, I could see this guy employing some moronic henchmen.
Oh, yeah. He seems like the guy that would accidentally turn himself into a fly. I don't know why. I don't know why I get that feeling about him, but it just feels like he would do harmful experiments on himself.
Yeah. Just because it sounds fun. It sounds fun.
Yeah. Why not?
Oh man.
I wonder if that, I haven't gone too far down the original run, but having read this now, I really kind of want to. I want to see how bizarre the original run went.
Yeah.
Because I've dipped into a lot of the different iterations, but I haven't gone too far down with the original just because it's okay, you read the original because you want to know where it all came from. But you get as far as you have access to, where at the time when they were popular, Archie Comics actually had Eastman and Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So they were already wearing like, the now classic red, purple, blue, and orange masks. And so you're like, that's some of the comics that I came up with, even though I had a few of the Mirage Studio stuff.
I like the first issue didn't really have it. And I guess this is nothing surprising to me about Turtles, but I like the sci-fi angle because they definitely had it with the second issue, and then how the third issue ended. In my copy, I was like, oh man, I want to read that. I would definitely read more.
So looking at like what the Ninja Turtles have become, how far have you gotten into like the whole expanse of it? Like obviously you watched some of the animated series way back in the day. You watched the live action movies. You said the first 2.
I've seen the first 3.
Oh, you have seen the third one.
I've seen the original.
You weren't claiming that one at first.
Well, I said I liked the first 2. I remember being very disappointed with Turtles in Time, and I think I only ever watched it once when I rented it when I was a kid. But the first 2, I think I seen them both in the theater when they came out.
Oh yeah,
and those were the first one came out in 1990. I was 8, so prime age, man. I love that.
Oh sure. For sure.
Even the second one, which I probably doesn't hold up quite as well, but...
No, but I mean, it's still fun.
Yeah.
You have Kino. You have some legit martial artists in there. That's pretty fun. Ernie Reyes Jr. is in that second one. And I think he did some of the stunt work in the first one. Have you seen, they did TMNT, which was kind of a return to animation a little bit, but it was an animated feature. Did you see any of that?
Okay, yeah, I saw the... Wait, was it like the CG one or?
Slightly CG, yeah. It was more computer generated.
Okay, I did see that, and then I've seen the first of the more modern live action ones.
Okay, the newest one is now out on a lot of things. I think it might even be it's either on Hulu or it's on Netflix. It's definitely on Prime because that's what I watched it on. And you can, if you have Prime, you can see it on there without commercials, which is nice. But I think they also have it on Hulu right now. And I just recently watched it because it's available. It's on these streaming services, and it's what everybody said. It's about as it's better than the first one, but only slightly.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't hate the first one as much as I expected to. I put it off for a long time, and then it was on, I don't know, maybe it was on Netflix or something, and I was like, let's give it a try. But it's not good. I mean,
no, it's not.
I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't hate it. I really should. Everything about it kind of irritates me, but whatever. There's some entertainment, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, Shredder sucked, and April sucked, and the turtles look weird. And
what's his name? They actually made Vern interesting.
Which one's
the
Vern?
Cameraman? What's his name?
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's on Arrested Development. What's his name?
Will Arnett?
Yeah, Will Arnett. He was fun. Yeah, Lego Batman. He was fun.
I haven't watched all of Lego Batman. I think I watched.
You gotta watch Lego Batman.
I watched a quarter to half of it one day when I was homesick from work a while back. But I think that's it. I don't think I finished it. But that's, yeah. And then, the original animated series, but that's about it. I think I might have caught a little bit of one of the random, more modern animated series, but I'm pretty sure they're 3 or 4 deep on those now. So
sure. So, I mean, like, having read this, one that I would recommend, in that 2000s animated series, they did a animated feature called Turtles Forever, which is super fun. It basically takes the multiverse idea and applies it to the Ninja Turtles. And so basically what happens is the turtles from the 80s cartoon series pop up in the 2000 cartoon series. And they're just super cheesy. They're super ridiculously cheesy, and it plays off all the tropes of that. And so they come in there trying to save the day. And of course, Michelangelo from the more modern series loves them. And it's like, dude, they've got their name, they've got the letters of their names on their belt like a superhero. And he's just like, oh my God, I love these guys, and like Rob Paulson's Raphael is constantly breaking the fourth wall and looking at the camera and making a bad pun.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and then they have to follow those turtles back to their universe, and so the first thing that they have to do every day is rescue April.
Really?
Yeah. And so I've what it boils down to is I think it was the Shredder from different universes. They tried to collude. They try to create a plot that will take down the turtles. So they go back to what was the Prime universe. So they go way back to the original Ninja Turtles. And they're like, what is wrong with you guys? You guys are a bunch of jokers.
That's pretty great.
And it's pretty awesome. So
I'll have to search that out.
If you can track that down, it's not perfect, but it's pretty fun, and it pulls on a lot of the Ninja Turtle tropes from throughout their history. And at the end, they even do an homage back to Eastman and Laird, where you see the original Ninja Turtle artwork there on his drawing board.
Oh,
thing.
That's cool.
So,
that's nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice little thing. So I'd recommend that to you and our listeners if you're interested. And if you've read the original Ninja Turtles and you like a kind of fun homage, then that's what this was. Turtles Forever.
Turtles Forever.
Yeah.
Letters page. We have no letters. This is Randy from in the future, and I have a very important message for you. The Grawlix podcast is missing something, and that something is you. Join our letters page segment. If you have thoughts on what we're reading, what we just read, what we're about to read, what you're reading, or you just want to say hi, send us an email to letters@grawlixpodcast.com, and we'll read and discuss your letter on the show. What the devil? What are you doing here? Hey folks, this is Randy from further in the future. And what my former self neglected to mention is we also have a Google Voice line. You can call it, leave a message, and we will play that message on the next episode of the Grawlix podcast. Try to keep it under 2 minutes. Whatever you want to talk to us about it. Ideally, something related to the show. Dial 559-426-6427, or if this helps you remember, 559-4-COMICS. Type that into your phone. You'll be connected to our voicemail. Leave us a message, and we will play it on the show. This is getting ridiculous. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. This is Randy from even further in the future. And what these two knuckleheads neglected to mention is if you'd rather send us an MP3 recording of yourself to play on the show, you can hit that email. Again, that's letters@grawlixpodcast.com with an MP3 attachment, and we'll play it during the show. Just try to keep your language clean and keep it under 2 minutes. Also, hey Bonehead, did you just shoot our younger self? Yeah, it's cool. Shouldn't we be doing the Marty McFly disappear from the picture act right now? No, it's fine. He was a time remnant. Oh, a time. That doesn't make sense. A time remnant doesn't make sense. At some point, older Randy has to travel back to talk to younger Randy. But if older Randy kills younger Randy never gets to become older Randy and travel back in time. It's time travel, not cloning. We're not cloning and sending ourselves back. We're just time traveling. You don't know that. We could be operating on primer rules. In that case, there can only be one. Next episode, we talk about Doctor Who. Since this last season just finished, except for the Christmas special, we'll have lots to talk about. And with the recent announcement of this 13th Doctor, I'm sure there will be a lot to talk about there. We'll also talk about some other, Game of Thrones is starting up. Preacher is going strong. Twin Peaks, for all the comic book nerds out there into Twin Peaks. Yeah, TV episode. TV talk. This has been Randy. This is great. First it was the farm that time forgot, and now this. Why don't I ever fall in with people who own condos? Probably hard to get good maid service in the sewer. Maybe you guys should try Grawlix, huh?
And this has been Jesse. Yes, friends, the new Turbo Ginsu. Woohoo! It slices, it dices, and it makes French fries in 3 different Grawlix.
Thank you for listening to the Grawlix Podcast. The Grawlix Podcast is a production of the Electronic Media Collective and Vorpal Arrow Studios. For more Grawlix podcasts, check out grawlixpodcast.com. Also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, YouTube, electronicmediacollective.com, facebook.com/GrawlixPodcast, twitter.com/GrawlixPodcast, all the .com/all the Grawlix Podcast.
Oh my God.
What's that?
Okay. I'm looking at Ninja Turtles movie quotes.
Uh-huh.
And there's the quote between Donatello and Casey Jones. Yeah. He's like, "You're claustrophobic." And he's like, "You want a fist in the mouth? I never even looked at another guy before."
Ooh, yeah, that ages awkwardly.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you think about like Bill and Ted's, they would do that whole homophobic thing too.
Uh-huh.
It's like, wow, even in Ninja Turtles they did